Click to subscribe. Movies, music, digital storage, your car. It seems there's a subscription for almost every aspect of our lives. But at what point does it stop being convenient and start robbing us of owning anything ever again? I'm Stefanie Dekker, and welcome to the stream.
Do you want to know what the worst feeling in the world is? I'll tell you. It's when you get charged for a subscription that you forgot to cancel. It feels personal. I feel attacked. I feel like the victim of a very bad crime.
Now, for decades, we were able to buy a videotape, a CD of an album, or purchase the software that we need. Now, there's endless content at our fingertips, but we get to access it for a price. And once we stop paying, it's gone. Well, the result, the subscription economy has globally made close to $500 billion in 2024. And an entire generation are becoming renters of everything, owners of nothing. Well, to discuss all of this, we are joined by Sanya Dosani, an Emmy award-winning journalist and filmmaker, and currently reporting for More Perfect Union. She is based in New York City. And we have Joy Buchanan, an associate professor of quantitative analysis and economics in Samford University's Brock School of Business in Birmingham, Alabama. Ladies, thank you very much for joining us on the stream today. And before we go to you, I want to set up this conversation and give you a sense of what we're talking about. Now, you're probably more than likely already part of this trend, and maybe this clip will hit a little close to home.
All right, Jackson, I'm seeing here that you're paying $320 a month in subscriptions. We're going to need to get this down.
I know we do, Mr. Accountant. I just don't know where to start.
Okay, you've got Netflix, Stan, Disney, Binge, Apple, Paramount, Amazon, and Crunchyroll.
Oh, yeah, they all need to stay.
They all need to stay?
Each of those offers like one or two things I like.
Okay, I see here that you have Spotify Premium and you also have YouTube Premium, which also offers a music streaming service?
I love YouTube Premium, but I'll never listen to music not on Spotify.
It says you've got DoorDash Premium. What's that?
I think it gets my deliveries cheaper. That one pays for itself.
How often do you use the entire Adobe suite?
Probably not enough.
You're paying $40 monthly for ChatGPT 4.
Yeah, I used it several times when I got it, and then I forgot about it.
You've been getting socks of the month delivered to what looks like where you lived 3 houses ago.
Oh yeah, that's been going on for years. I'm assuming those guys are cool with that.
You're paying for 3 terabytes of storage on Google.
Am I?
Yes.
I don't even use Google.
I think that has affected us all. I certainly know I have been a victim to that. Sanya, let me start with you. What is the subscription economy? When did it start to appear? And why is it that we're becoming more and more renters rather than owning anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. The subscription economy is this shift that's happened from buying something and owning it to just perpetually renting something. And the subscription concept as a business model has been around, since for hundreds of years with milkmen and newspapers. And it creates like a situation where it's convenient for customers. They get something that they regularly want. And then it's a stable income for the business. But where we saw things really change was in the late 90s with this company Salesforce that creates software for businesses. And at that point, when you wanted to buy Microsoft Word or Adobe, you would go to the store, you would buy a CD-ROM and install that on your computer, and you could use that software for as long as you wanted. What Salesforce did in the late 90s is they started looking at software not as a product, but as a service. So software as a service, I'm sure you've heard this term. Salesforce invented that. And they started charging people a monthly or yearly fee to use their software. And when they went public in the early 2000s, Wall Street realized that that's an even better business model than buying something outright. You have this group of customers that is going to stay with you, and was kind of off to the races at that point. You saw Netflix with movie streaming as a service and Spotify with music streaming as a service. And the entire digital space filled with that pretty quickly, as we all experienced in the last couple of decades. The recent, more dystopian part of that has been smart products and our physical devices that run on software. Now companies can limit the way that you use your physical products because they have software in them. So you could have a toothbrush that, is connected to Wi-Fi, and maybe you need to pay a subscription service to use that. So you have toothbrushing as a service, you have printing as a service, and this could continue on forever now, as everything that we own has Wi-Fi and everything that we own runs on software.
Joy, I saw you smiling in reaction to especially the toothbrush that's connected to Wi-Fi, because there is an element of control here, isn't there? Like with the printers, for example, one company, if you're not using the right ink that's approved by the company, they can simply make the printer not work, block it. So where are we going?
Well, I laughed at the Wi-Fi toothbrush because I think you can very easily buy a dumb toothbrush still today. This is a great conversation to be having. I think a lot of us as consumers have had that experience where you sign up for a subscription and you really should cancel it soon after, but you don't, and then they accumulate. And I think in the modern world, that's something that we sort of need to be aware of more than we used to. But overall, sort of my take on this is that we really have a lot of wonderful things available to us at a fairly low price in a way that was never true before. Thank you for bringing on an old person who remembers CDs and LimeWire.
You're in good company. You're in good company.
Oh, good. But I mean, the truth is today, through like an Apple Music subscription, you can have access to the entire world's library of music, and for something like $12 a month, which is about what we would have spent on one album a month back in the time of CDs. So I think overall, especially when it comes to digital products, life is better than it used to be, but now our expectations have changed as well. So the idea that you ought to be able to watch any TV show you can think of, on demand without ads, has developed an expectation that we really can't meet. I mean, if you do want that, then you have to pay for it somehow. So maybe you do need 10 subscriptions, but probably for people, especially if they're young, if they're starting out, maybe they're, 21, 22, possibly adjusting your expectations down slightly, rotate your subscriptions, wait to see the show that you want. I mean, that's, again, to sound old, that's how we used to do it. What was on cable TV was on. And if it wasn't on, you just had to wait, or you had to go like purchase a movie. So, life moves a lot faster today. And I do think there's a new set of concerns and sort of a mental juggling act that we need to do today with subscriptions that, we didn't have to do before, but we also have a lot more available to us. And that's a good thing.
Everything is so, like you were saying, so quickly, readily, easily available for us. Those days of waiting for the next series to come out, for an album to drop there and have access to them are over. Well, as we were talking about there, Sanya was mentioning companies are jumping on the subscription bandwagon, even if it's something that you already own.
Volkswagen just did something that should make every car owner furious. They're selling their electric ID.3 with its full horsepower locked behind a paid subscription. The car comes from the factory with 228 horsepower, but if you don't pay a monthly fee, it's software limited to just 201. For about $22 a month, they'll flip a digital switch and unlock the power that was already inside the car that you paid for. First, BMW tried to sell you a subscription for heated seats. Now VW is selling you a subscription for your engine. Their defense? It gives customers a sportier driving experience without a higher initial purchase price. But this isn't just about cars, this is the future they want for everything. Imagine a monthly fee to use the high heat setting on your oven or the fast cycle on your dishwasher. You don't own the product, you're just renting its best features.
Sanya, the oven concept there really gets to me and shows you how potentially which direction we're going in. How do you see it? Where are we headed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are headed in a direction where we don't really own anything anymore. And I think the problem with subscriptions in some ways, while technically, maybe this gives you more choice in, if you buy a car and you don't want all these features, but what does it mean to buy a car that has all these capabilities and has the hardware to do this faster acceleration, to have heated seats, but you can't access that, it calls into question what it means to buy something. And subscription services, I mean, I think they rely heavily on trapping customers too. So you don't really have full choice if you're not clear. Like in the digital space, you're not always clear on what it means when you're signing up for a subscription, what it means when you're signing up for a free trial. I think we're moving from a situation where subscriptions were mutually beneficial for the customer and for the business to a situation where we don't really have options of whether or not we want the subscription, and the only way to access a product is through a subscription. Then they have no motivation to make the product better and keep you as a customer. You're just sort of locked in perpetuity. And
there is various software companies, et cetera, right, that have a monopoly, and it's about control as well, isn't it? Well, there's a backlash happening, certainly, as companies increasingly turn everything into an ongoing direct debit, as we're talking about. Young people are rediscovering the world of CDs and vinyls. Take a listen.
We don't own anything. Not our homes, not our cars, not our devices, not even our music and movies. This is my case for physical media. The second you stop paying for your subscription, poof, it's gone. The playlist you've spent years building, gone. Your favorite comfort shows, gone. Sometimes you don't even have to stop paying for them to disappear. Because streaming is not ownership, it's renting. But physical media, that is yours. It doesn't vanish because a licensing deal ended. And if you can thrift it, you're keeping plastic heavy items out of the landfills, and you could be saving money. There's a whole history of good music, good movies, and good media behind me, preserved and ready to be consumed over and over again. And for far less than what I was paying to subscribe, I found so much more freedom in discovering and rediscovering great works that have already been made.
Joy, you made a good point earlier where you were saying, well, actually, for those who criticize this model, and there are many, we see there are a lot of people also going back to buying the physical items, that we do in this digital age where we're so used to getting everything so fast, that we do have so much more choice. You know, we don't have to go to a movie rental place anymore and pick our movie and bring it back. You know, now you can watch any movie pretty much at any time if you pay for it. So is there also a discrepancy economically, right? Because if you don't have access to these things, if you're not that financially solvent, if you don't have access to the digital space as we do have, let's say, in the first world, can you compromise on those two?
Yeah, well, she made a great point in the video. I don't know if this is true everywhere in the world, but if you go to a thrift store today, you can typically find a CD for 50 cents, a DVD for $1, and you can start building a physical library for, you know, essentially less than what you'd pay for 2 TV subscriptions. But then again, like, all you have is what you have in your house, which is how we used to live. And people can live that way again. And maybe there's something kind of fun about that. Or, you know, over the course of a lifetime, you can build a physical library of favorites that nobody can take away from you until it's time to move. So I think she makes a great point. And I think that part of what we're seeing is we're seeing innovation in real time. And, you know, people have never had TV subscriptions before, so we're sort of figuring it out. And so something that will be important is some form of competition to sort of discipline those media companies. I did hear the word monopoly earlier in the discussion. And, you know, economists typically think of monopolies as bad because consumers don't have a lot of choice. And there isn't that sort of forced disciplining the companies to keep prices low and to keep, quantity large for the consumers. And so I do think probably if you imagine a world where there's only one media company, and people do worry about that sometimes, like, oh, you know, Disney has everything, and then, you know, we're sort of stuck with whatever they want to give us, and that doesn't sound great. But as long as there is competition between these companies, and, you know, the option of just going to the thrift store and buying DVDs and looking into various online options for entertainment, then I think we're just sort of seeing innovation in real time, and customers occasionally making mistakes where they sign up for a subscription they probably shouldn't have signed up for, or they got sort of trapped with the free trial. So I think, you know, we do need to learn to not go for those free trials unless we're sort of prepared to deal with the consequences, you know. But, overall, I would still make the point that, we have more than ever. I think people on a lower budget arguably also have more than ever. It may not be as convenient. They may have to watch ads, whereas someone who's very wealthy might be able to stream everything on demand without ads. But I would still say that just about everyone in the world has more entertainment today than they used to.
Sanya, we were talking there, Joy mentioned the concept of a physical library. I see books behind you. I'm assuming you're in your home. How important are these physicalities for you? I'm assuming you still pick up a book rather than using a digital, a Kindle or whatever, music. How do you live your life, let's say, if we go a little personal?
I think I do both. I think as Joy was mentioning, like you can have your physical library of your favorites. And that's kind of how I approach it. Things that I know I really like, or I know I want to re-engage with, those are things that I would prioritize trying to own the physical copy. I don't have a record player or a CD player currently. So with music, I am pretty much streaming everything. But when it comes to books, I think it's nice to read, but I don't have a lot of I'm not hung up on needing to have the physical object. If, for instance, I want to rent an ebook from the library, I have a Kindle so that I can do that. So I think there's a place for buying and there's a place for renting. And even in our previous world where you only had what you had, there was still options to rent things. There were still libraries and there were still Blockbusters and there were still places where you could engage with a piece of media without having to physically own it, and you could just lend things to friends. Now, this is slightly a different point, but you can't lend an ebook that you bought on Amazon to a friend the way that you would be able to lend a library book or a book that you own to a friend. So there are these restrictions that are making even this situation that already existed more difficult sometimes.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you could gift someone go ahead, Joy.
Yeah. So, just one point I want to make in the time we have together is that I think companies who are using the subscription model are partly responding to what consumers did as soon as digital files became swappable, is they just took them without paying for them. So I have some research with my co-author Bart Wilson about whether people feel bad taking digital property. And typically, if someone takes a physical good and you actually deprive another person of use, that might make you feel guilty. That might inspire sort of condemnation. That's sort of a naturally, bad thing to do, and we all kind of see that as theft and wrong. And with digital files, in the late '90s, early 2000s, we noticed that most people will just take stuff if they can. They don't seem to even feel particularly bad about it. And so if companies don't trust us to pay for digital goods that we do have some control over, then, their natural response is to move to a subscription model. And in a sense, we might be, stuck there because that's the only way companies can stay in business. Like if you were able to just give a song to all of your friends, you probably would. And then that artist might not be able to make songs, the next year, or the company may not stay in business. So in one sense, I think the subscription economy is a reaction to the fact that, most people don't really view it as wrong to just take things that they can take and not necessarily pay for them. And so companies had to find a new way to just be able to make money and stay in business.
Okay, so I'm just going to be a little devil's advocate just to follow up on that. The concept of planned obsolescence, which is, your technology, suddenly a couple of years, it starts to fail. And there's a lot of, allegations and accusations that is done on purpose, that we have to give up our technology so that we buy more. Suddenly the plugs change. At your phone, you've got the same phone, but they've updated, certain things. So we have to keep buying. Do you think that's accurate, or do you think that's not the case?
I'm sure there are some cases of that. I think in one sense, businesses probably would try to get away with that. And we as consumers hopefully can push back on that. I think that's bad for the environment. However, probably the case you would make for the businesses is that again, that's how they can make money. If they sell you the thing at a slightly lower cost, you're more likely to get on. It's almost like engaging in a subscription in a sense. And then they don't make money again until, you come back. So I think the planned obsolescence is bad. It's not something I want for my own stuff or for the landfills. However, the flip side to that might be that we need to pay more upfront for quality goods that will last.
Interesting. You were talking about piracy there. Some people are also using it as protest alongside the rise in thrifting. Take a listen to this.
It'd be pretty hypocritical of me to go from pirating games and DVDs when I was younger and couldn't afford them to now that I can, saying, actually, you shouldn't do that because it hurt big company shareholders. Yet I do have difficulty completely condoning it from the perspective of wanting to support the creators of a piece of media who are already pulling the shortest straw at every turn in this industry. It only seems like yesterday when Hollywood writers and actors went on strike for the blatant predatory situations they were being put in by the studios they work for. I mean, main reason I pay for everything now is to support them, the creators. However, at the same time, I feel like piracy is a way for the consumer to also strike against the same studios, and with how consumer unfriendly things have gotten, the industry might need some pushback.
Sanya, listening to that, we are in an age of artificial intelligence, of AI. There are a couple of companies that run and control so much of our information, and this is changing so very fast. Do you see that going hand in hand as to what we're talking about? We're talking about big corporations, but more and more it's concentrating, perhaps not a monopoly, but in the hands of a very few.
I think there is that is happening, I guess, that we're seeing. I think on the question of like how piracy relates to that, and I think the person in the video made a really interesting point of like looking at it as protest, but that is one thing that was coming to mind for me when we were talking about, this idea of people not feeling as bad for stealing digital products. And as somebody who works in a creative space and, at different points in my career, my income has been dependent on people paying for the work that I'm doing. I see both sides of this, but it is, if we as consumers are so separated from the actual artist that's making the content that we're creating, it is really hard to see why you shouldn't just be able to watch everything that you want to watch. And it's true that if I watch a movie, that doesn't mean that if I pirate a movie, it doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't get to watch it. And also, if I'm paying Disney to watch that movie, is the writer, is the animator even going to get any of that money? I think like people are aware of how faceless and nameless media creation and the entertainment industry has gotten. And so I would imagine, I don't know this as a fact, but I've seen it happen kind of anecdotally, that when an artist is selling something directly, people are willing to buy their product from them rather than pirating it. But I think as you have distribution of digital goods controlled by just a few companies, it doesn't even feel like what is the point of just giving more money to those companies when they're not sharing that money with the people who are actually putting the products on there.
Joy, just final thought from you in terms of our humanity. We were talking about books earlier, or like you could lend a book or you could gift a book and write something to whoever you're gifting the book to, write an inscription. There's something personal to that. Or we used to make mixtapes. Now, okay, you can send a playlist that you've created, but if someone stops paying, that might disappear. What does it mean for who we are as humans? More of an existential question, I suppose, where we're going with this sort of this age.
People may, having tried the subscription model, they may decide to find some kind of balance going forward where maybe you have, one TV subscription going for new stuff, but you are accumulating a DVD library. And I certainly have a lot of books at home, and that's the way I would want it to be. And I can, lend them to neighbors and family and underline in them. And that's a great, privilege. And I don't see that going anywhere. I think people will want something tangible. So I've said I think it's great that this digital, fire hose of the internet gives us access to more things. But I think you're right that ultimately people will want something physical and something that they can, connect long-term with through, community and other people.
Guess like with everything, isn't it? It's about finding balance. Well, Sanya and Joy, thank you very much for joining us today on the stream. It's been a great conversation, and thank you for watching. I would say click to subscribe, follow us on social media. We've got a great team from me and the entire fantastic stream team. I'll see you soon.